Welcome to a new episode of Listen In with KNN, the sports sound of the district. Today, we welcome Washington, D.C. native and well-known boxing promoter, Leonard Ellerbe. Ellerbe has been involved in the sport for over 40 years. He started out as an amateur boxer before he became a personal trainer for all-time boxing great Floyd Mayweather. From there, Ellerbe became a top lead promoter for some of the biggest events in boxing history, including fights with Oscar de la Hoya and Manny Pacquiao. Ellerbe has been the CEO of Mayweather Promotions since 2007 and has added a list of reputable fighters ever since. We now welcome Leonard Ellerbe to this live stream of Listen In with KNN. Here is your host, Kelsey Nicole Nelson. It's Listen In with KNN, the sports sound of the district. We bring you the biggest guests, great analysis, and the hottest sports stories in the nation's capital and beyond. And we bring it to you live. Welcome to this live stream broadcast of Listen In with KNN. Here's your host, Kelsey Nicole Nelson.
All right. Hello, everyone. Happy Thursday. Welcome into a brand new live stream edition of Listen In with KNN Sports Talk Radio Show and Podcast. I'm your host, Kelsey Nicole Nelson, coming to you all live for this special 12:30 p.m. Eastern Time edition. I am super excited for today's guest. I guess we're continuing the DC tradition. We obviously recently welcomed Kermit Washington, a former NBA player, also another Washington, D.C. native. And today I have Leonard Ellerbe joining me. We've got a big fight happening next week that I hope you all are super excited about. Leonard is the lead promoter for some of the biggest events in boxing history. We're going to talk all about that. And he's also the CEO of Mayweather Promotions. Yeah, you might know that company or so. So super excited to welcome him on. We're going to talk live, have him for about an hour. Bring your questions, bring your comments, bring the fun, y'all. It's going to be lots and lots of fun. So without further ado, please help me welcome Leonard to the show. Leonard, welcome to the show. How are you?
Oh, thank you for having me, Kelsey.
It's my pleasure. How's your day been? How's it going? I know you're kind of busy. You got something big happening next week. So I know you're probably just going crazy, right?
Yeah, it's been really crazy, but it's a great thing to be operating at this level. And as you just mentioned, we have the biggest fight in boxing next Saturday night on SHOWTIME PPV.
I'm looking.
Tank Davis versus Ryan Garcia.
We have to get into that. We're already getting questions and comments, but before we get there, I see the Len Bias jersey behind you. I see the couple of Len Bias jerseys. We're both Chirp grads. We're both University of Maryland grads. So I want to get into that because obviously the NBA playoffs are playing tournament right now happening. Lots of great basketball. But let's start with your journey at the University of Maryland and shed light on what Len Bias meant to you.
Len Bias, I mean, he's a legend. He was a legend. May he rest in peace. Again, it's just so unfortunate that, what the tragedy that happened, before he was really getting ready to get his career going. And I honestly believe he probably would have went down as probably maybe the best ever to do it. He was
Yeah.
he was that talented. He was that talented. And again, may he rest in peace. Yeah.
Yeah, just sad, like you said, and one of the greatest to ever do it, and just a story that we'll never fully, truly know. But I love those jerseys framed up behind you. And, speaking of basketball, our men's basketball team did pretty well this year in the tournament. Of course, we wish they went further. I didn't know if you had also a chance to check out our Lady Terps, who made it to the Elite Eight. And then we just had 2 Terps selected in the first round, Leonard, of the WNBA draft. Do you still keep up with Maryland hoops?
Yes, and I'm very, very proud of what Angel Reese has been able to do. She's killing it, and she's definitely paving the way for the generation kind of behind her. I love everything about her. Her personality, her game is off the charts, and again, she's part of this new generation that's gonna, she's going all the way. She's going all the way. And that's what women's basketball needs is an outspoken person like her who's super talented, who's a genuine young lady. And I think she's going to be the face.
Yeah. If she's not already. I mean, she's probably one of the most popular names right now, not even just the world of college basketball, but obviously with what ensued after, she really became a trend for mainstream media, right, to talk about. I think my only thing, Leonard, I wish we could have kept her a Terp.
I know, right?
Come here to Maryland.
Right.
But Baltimore native, glad to see her do great things. It's been great to see her with John Morant, DJ Khaled. I feel like she's living her best life. The Bayou Barbie merchandise is selling at an all-time high. And I feel like she's doing what needs to be done. But let me just touch on Angel Reese really quickly. Obviously, the conversation after the game, even though they played a hell of a game, scored over 100 points. She's a double-double queen. But the conversation turned into what she did after. And of course, that celebration, the Tony Yayo and the pointing to the ring finger. And we had a conversation about how Black women in sports are judged. And just as somebody who's worked in the sports world and the profession for so long, obviously there's females in boxing. Just kind of curious where you landed on the conversation that happened after with Angel Reese and kind of how she was judged by some.
Yeah, it was just unfortunate because, it's part of competition, trash talking. And obviously, Caitlin Clark had did it. And then it was a whole different kind of conversation when Angel Reese did it. And it's just unfortunate, how as a community that we're judged oftentimes, and it's just it's just very, very unfortunate. And I felt a certain kind of way because but I was also glad that what Caitlin Clark said that when she said that, hey, it's part of part of sportsmanship, and she did nothing wrong. She did absolutely nothing wrong.
Exactly. Like you said, I was glad Caitlin Clark, I felt like I gained so much more respect for her saying that. And you would have thought it ended the story, but of course, media will continue on. Folks will continue on, especially social media. But if anything, I think we're excited to see these girls continue to ball out. We've already now seen the growth of women's basketball. We just had the second highest WNBA draft watching. So people are going to women's basketball, which is exciting. We just found out Notre Dame, South Carolina, we're seeing them overseas in Paris. Like, women's basketball is on the rise, Leonard. Now, we've been spoiled because at Maryland, we've seen great basketball for a while, but I'm glad the world is finally catching on. And Leonard, kind of staying with the Maryland theme, in Washington, D.C., first off, welcome back home because you're in town, right?
Yes, I'm in town. Came to do a bunch of promotion for our fight next Saturday night. And again, it's great to be back in the area with, I have a few friends that, been friends with for a number of years, but it's been mostly busy. My schedule's been from early in the morning to late in the evening, but I'm just excited to be back in the area.
Well, we're excited to have you back. We love real ones when they come back, and especially DC natives. The city might have changed a little bit since you were last here, Leonard.
It changed a lot.
DC always changing, always growing. And let's touch on that. So obviously you grew up in Washington, DC, specifically Northeast DC. And I know you described it as, always trouble and everyone, there was always a fight. So I want to talk about your upbringing growing up in Northeast DC and how that kind of transformed you into the man that you are today.
Yeah, growing up in the Northeast area, it was definitely challenging, especially, early on, you know, during childhood. But I learned so much, you know, from, I guess, from my parents, you know, because my parents were very strict, you know, on me and my brother. And it taught me so much because you know, especially early on, I was like, my mom was so mean, but she was just very protective of her boys, and she didn't want us to get out there in that world where everything was going crazy. And, you know, because I didn't understand that until I got probably about 17 or 18, you know, then I looked around and like all my friends that I kind of grew up with, and people in the neighborhood, everybody was dead or in jail.
Wow.
And my mom, and you know, then that's when the light bulb came on. It was like, wow, all this time she was just protecting us, you know, trying to shield us from all the crazy things were happening in our neighborhood and in the city, you know. And there's just such a blessing that, you know, that you have parents that who were like that, you know, because if it wasn't for my mother being that way, we wouldn't be having this conversation today. I'm pretty sure about that. So it's a blessing to have, you know, parents in your life. Unfortunately, both of my parents are deceased now. So, but both of my parents have had a tremendous impact on who I am today, you know, from everything about me, you know, growing up in this area, because it was tough back then, you know. But I'm blessed to be in the situation that I am, you know, growing up in this city. You know, I learned so much. So much.
Yeah. You know, you talk about that. And for folks that, you know, didn't grow up in the city of Washington, D.C., you know, what would be some of maybe what's the top 3 things you'd say that you learned? Like, you know, how did your upbringing here, do you think, prepare you for life?
One, being respectful to people. Going to school, going to school, and how important education would be in my life. And what's one more thing? Just being humble. Being humble. Being humble.
Yeah, and I can already tell you still have all of those qualities, and important for people to obviously realize today. And just staying with DC, and you talked about your parents. Your father used to box, right?
Yes, he did when he was like a kid. Yep, he sure did.
And got into boxing and looked up to people like Sugar Ray Leonard, another local guy who we love, who we've had on this show. Who were some of your other boxing inspirations, Leonard, growing up?
Ooh, Sugar Ray, Evander Holyfield, Marvin Hagler, Roger Mayweather. Yeah, that's just to name a few. Yeah.
I know I put you on the spot. I'm taking you back, but you know, I mean, obviously, just all greats. And I know you watch fights. You saw greats like Muhammad Ali, Larry Holmes, and you actually started to pursue a boxing career of your own. So, what was that journey like for you?
Oh, it was great, because living in Northeast off of 42nd Amendment Road, I had to catch 3 buses because I was boxing out at Hillcrest in Maryland, and 3 buses every day from school to practice, you know, to train and back. You know, so it was quite challenging, you know, at that time, you know, because again, we didn't have a car, you know. So I remember those times, and I'm very, very appreciative that, you know, I was in the position to be able to see it all the way through, you know, even though it was tough, you know, making that trek every single day and not having good days in the gym, getting beat up, you know, at times, but just hanging with it. It taught me so much, you know, being disciplined and just the camaraderie, and just being a part of something that was really good as a kid growing up. And the discipline part was really, really important, because that was later. It taught me about structure and all of those kind of things moving forward, you know, as a teenager, and you know, moving into an adult, you know, and responsibility, you know. So I learned a lot, early on like that. And then you fast forward, then you're in a situation where I moved to Vegas in '96,
Right.
and Floyd was coming out of the Olympics, and they asked me to join the team.
Yeah.
And everybody thought I was crazy, just moving from Washington D.C., just giving up everything and moving out to Vegas. But it
Cross
was the
country.
best. It was the best decision I ever made in my entire life. Just
Yeah.
just rolling the dice and trusting God and your gut, on doing the right thing. And it was very challenging early on.
Right.
Um, but again, Floyd gave me the opportunity, and I
Yeah.
never turned back. I never turned back.
That's huge. And I love that you said that. Something you related to is, you bet on yourself, essentially, right? Like you said, you took that chance, you rolled the dice. And obviously it didn't turn out too bad for you, Leonard. I'd say most, as we look where you are now, and then just kind of going back to how you connected with Floyd, you had actually knew his uncles, right? Roger and Jeff Mayweather for years. And you saw
Yes.
as a teenager, right? That Floyd was such
Yes.
a talent. Like, so what made Floyd stand out to you? I mean, there's lots of guys I'm sure that, want to get people's attention, that think they have what it takes. What was rare about him at the time?
Well, he had the same kind of personality that he has today. He's just an Energizer bunny, but he was always dedicated to his craft. He was very, very disciplined. He never drank or smoked a day in his life, and he was just focused. And I noticed that early on, because I actually met him when he was like 13 years old, when I was actually in Vegas visiting his uncle Roger. And from that point on, it was just like we had kind of like a mutual respect, for one another. And then when I eventually moved to Vegas, I was really impressed with his work ethic. And so, and coming from this area, we're kind of, as I say, we're kind of just hustlers by nature. And so when I moved to the men and women, so when I moved to Vegas, I noticed that it was just like, this young man, he's very, very dedicated and, disciplined to, what he wants to do. He had, certain goals that he had in mind. But, being 19 years old at that time, his focus was just on boxing. It wasn't chasing girls and all of that. And so we were like-minded, when it came to putting in the work. And that was actually the kind of the first thing that I noticed when I went out there, is that I was like, geez, like the people out here are kind of lazy. And like coming from this background, it's like, we don't mind working. And then so it was just like, that's what it came down to. It was just like, he didn't mind working and I didn't mind working. And that's how we kind of built the bond. It was just like, we stayed working. We outworked our competition. Oftentimes for 15 years straight, 7 days a week, I worked 19, 20 hours a day. Yeah, I didn't have a life per se. So that was the sacrifice that I made, to build his career. We had a good team around us, and it was tough times. It was definitely tough times, because you don't start out on top.
Right.
We literally built everything that we did from the bottom. And it all started when we formed our company in 2007. And again, I never turned back from then.
Never turn back. And I love that you keep going back to the hard work and the hustle. And I think it's just inbred in us, folks from the DC area, the DMV area. Because I felt the same way when I go to the West Coast. Everyone's like lax and chill. And I'm always working, Leonard. I'm like, I'm always working. And much like you growing up, my parents told me I have the BMW. I had no car. That was bus, metro, or walk if I wanted to get somewhere. So better believe, Leonard, I was on the bus, metro, or walking.
Right.
And it humbles you. It does. But I had to make a way, obviously, to do what I want to do and get to where I want to get to. And obviously you kind of have that same mentality. And then you saw it, obviously, and a young Floyd. And then also you talk about, you have to start somewhere. And that's understanding you did a little bit of everything, right, for Floyd. I mean, you were doing paperwork, security, driving the team van, because you talked about that sacrifice, right? So you're CEO now, and you talk about 2007. Well, let's talk more about those little jobs that you did in between, kind of to make everything run and move smoothly for Floyd as he was coming up.
Yeah, because it was just only me and one other guy at that time. Excuse me. And his name was Sean, and it was just us. So, from driving to doing security to personal training, I did it all. And also I had to, took care of the business, the little stuff that we had going at that particular time. And he understood what my work ethic was like, and he was really impressed by it, and that I was committed, to what we were doing, and I never veered going the other way. Right. And so I think that was one of the main reasons why we built our bond, because again, it was like oftentimes, like I said, we're working, 20 hours a day. He's training 3 times a day, and the little bit of break that I had, a couple hours, I would, lay down, go to sleep, get up and shower, and do it all over again the next day. Yeah, do it all over the next day. And from there, I slowly but surely, start to learn the business side of boxing. And, he was at that particular time, he was signed with a company who signed him outside of when he came out of the Olympics. And I kind of, just was an understudy per se, just kind of watching and saw how the 2 people who were at the top of the boxing at that particular time was Don King and Bob Arum. Mm-hmm. And so I just kind of just watched what they were doing, and I was like, I learned everything that you're not supposed to do, and they were accused of a bunch of things, and, just like, okay. And then, at some point, me and Floyd started having conversations, and then he says, okay, well, when my contract expires, it's up to you to figure out how we're going to get this money. Yeah. And I'm like, so it's going to be up to me? I'm like, okay. And then I looked at the competition, and it was 2 guys at that particular time. They were probably in their late 60s. Wow. And I'm in my early 30s, what I mean? And it's like, oh, no. They'll never be able to outwork me. Right. Like, never. I got this. When I'm looking at those 2 guys as the competition, I say, no, we can do this. We can do this. And, and we started there building our own internal team. And then we built a empire. Yeah. We went from that to, he became a billionaire. Wow. It's amazing.
Say that, Leonard. I mean, there's only so many billionaires. And you talk about like just changing the game. Really, that's what you change the game. And I think that's huge. But I think also, obviously, there's a big piece of trust in that, because I'm sure as Floyd is rising, a lot of people like to latch on, right, when you're starting to do this. Right? When you're starting to take off, everybody wants to have a part of you. Everybody wants to have a piece, but he trusted you, like you said, and he trusted you to make that money. And I'd say Floyd didn't do too bad. The money team didn't do too bad when you talk about, making money. But let's go back to 2007. You talked about the inception of Mayweather Promotions and just how you all have continually been able to build fighters. You got to crown your first world champion back in 2013. Let's talk about that moment and what it was like for you. So you started in 2007, 2013, you have a world champion.
Wow. That was probably the most incredible moment as a promoter. Yeah. The emotion, I go back and oftentimes I look at the video of Ishe Smith. He was our first world champion. Right. And that particular night in Detroit, Michigan, and you could just see the emotion in Floyd's face, Ishe, and myself. It was just like we were just overcome with everything, because it was just like you put everything into building a fighter, and then see him reach that pinnacle where he's actually world champion. He was the first world champion of Las Vegas that, he was the first world champion that actually was a native of Las Vegas. So it was an incredible was an incredible feeling. And I was just so proud of him and what he had accomplished, and knowing that, the effort that me and my team, we had put into this, it was just a defining moment that you will always be proud of.
Oh, and I can still tell you're still proud. It's like it just happened almost, right? It's like we're back in 2013. It's something you'll always remember. And Leonard, as we're talking about building the promotions aspect of boxing, I want to ask you, as a Black man, do you think there's any unique challenges that you ever had to face or kind of come up against because of your race, right? And because of your gender in the promotions world?
Yeah, it's been several, because you can imagine, coming up, as we say, through the ranks, that there were a lot of challenges, with from the corporate side, from HBO, at that particular time, where they look at you, and but I understood what it was all about, that our time is going to come. Our time is going to come. I was patient. I built relationships. And I kind of stayed in my lane until I got in a position to basically call the shots.
Right.
And so it was definitely some challenging moments there. It was definitely challenging.
Yeah.
Early on.
Not easy, right? I'm sure the road probably wanted a bit. You had some roadblocks and speed bumps, but of course you're here. And I want to bring in some of our live listeners to get some questions in. So this one's from Chris Pompey, Leonard. His question is, how much has UFC affected pro boxing in terms of viewership and young and up and coming boxers into the sport?
UFC is great. And what I tell people all the time is that we're able to, boxing and UFC is able to coexist, because we have two different fan bases.
Right.
Entirely two different fan bases. They're not in our lane and we're not in their lane. Fans that really enjoy that sport, they're really into it. And fans who really into boxing, they enjoy boxing, and some crossover. But it's a thing that they built a brand from the bottom. Dana, he's a good friend of mine. Yeah. We've done business with the Conor McGregor fight, and so I'm happy to see people achieve whatever they're looking to achieve. Yeah. I've never been that kind of person who we say a hater. I'm always trying to support people and try to help them in any kind of way, because it's not going to stop me from what I got to do. Right. And as I say, there's enough for everybody.
Yeah. Yeah, as we like to say in DC, Leonard, everybody eats, right? Like
everybody eats.
There's room for everybody right at the table. So thank you for touching on that. Like you said, I think you said it so perfectly. There are like two different fan bases, and maybe some people, like both. I think you're catering to different crowds. Like most folks that like boxing, they love boxing, right? Like me, you love boxing from the beginning, and you continue to follow that sport. And to stay with boxing, let's get to the fun part. Let's talk about that fight, Leonard, that is coming up next week, folks. Especially in the area, you all should be excited, because we have 5-time 3-division world champion Gervonta Tank Davis taking on King Ryan Garcia. Now, I had the privilege, Leonard, of being at that fight in DC. Let me say that sold out fight in Washington, DC, which was so fun to be part of, seeing Tank, obviously play close to home. I know it's not Baltimore, but still close enough. But let's talk about this upcoming fight and why folks should be excited to watch this on pay-per-view.
It's a tremendous fight. You have two young, undefeated guys who are coming together in the biggest fight in all of boxing, and they're doing this in their prime. So when you look at boxing as a whole, you very rarely see, these are the kind of matchups that the fans they crave for, because again, it's not often that the guys are willing to risk it at this early stage in their careers. Because somebody's old must go on that particular night. And Tank, I'm so proud of him, what he's been able to accomplish thus far in his career. He is really, really locked in and doing everything what he's supposed to do. And come next Saturday night, he's going to show the fans around the world why he's the best at what he does.
Yeah.
And this is another step and proving that they say this guy is the best, and they all just got to get in line. He's going to beat them one by one.
Yeah. And continue to earn respect, right, along the way, and continue to get his name out there. You know, something you tweeted, I know you said, watch Ryan Garcia work out. He appeared to be focused and ready for next week, but you said both Gervonta and him are inspiring an entire generation of youth that anything is possible through hard work and dedication. So kind of what's been the theme, right, of our conversation. So let's talk about these young guys, like you said, because the other questions we're getting in the chat is, you know, how is this inspiring the next generation of young boxers, and how's that crop looking? How is the next, you know, generation of young boxers looking, Leonard?
It's looking great. And speaking of the younger generation, we have I have a young fighter who is signed to Mayweather Promotions. He's from the DC area. His name is Jaleel Hackett.
Yeah.
And he'll be fighting on the card as well. And so he's been in camp with Tank for the last 5.5 weeks. Right. And this is a great experience for him. So when he gets to that level, he'll understand what it's all like to put a camp together and how you're supposed to train and dealing with sparring partners and so many different things that go on in training camp for preparation for a big fight. And so he's one of the guys that he's definitely going to be a future world champion. And I'm so proud of the job that his mother and father have done. They're here from the area, obviously. Yeah. And he's a very nice young man, very respectful. And again, when I look at a young guy like that, it's definitely refreshing. Definitely refreshing because, again, it's somebody whose parents raised them the right way, you know. And so I'm those kind of things, they go a long, long way with me. And when you look at the, you know, all the other boxers out there, it's like, because you look at Tank's background, and here it is, he comes from the inner city of Baltimore, and he's overcome so many things in his life at an early age, from being in group homes, you know, not being with his mother and father, you know, et cetera. And to build a bond with Coach Calvin was, I think he was like been his mentor from since he was a little kid. He got him started out in boxing, and Calvin has changed so many lives with these young kids and still continuing to do that to this point. That's and that's when we talk about inspiring a whole generation of youth. You know, I look at the kids in Baltimore, and they all look up to Tank, and because they see that, okay, well, he come from where we come from, and he actually made it. Yeah, he actually made it, and you know, Tank's making millions upon millions of dollars, you know, doing something that he loves doing, but he's putting in the work, and you know, he has 2 beautiful kids. You know, he's trying to set a positive example for them, you know, and that's really what it's all about. That's why I always say he's inspiring a whole generation of youth. And Ryan Garcia is doing the same thing. You know, he's Mexican American. He has a lot of young kids that look up to him, and he's done a phenomenal job thus far with building his career from the marketing side. You know, he's become a face out there, you know, and especially in the social media world, you know, he's been a visible face and a positive light to show kids from where he's from, his culture, that anything is possible.
Yeah, and it truly is. Like you said, they're both shining examples that truly anything is possible. And since you mentioned Ryan, let's get to it. There's a quote that came up from Oscar De La Hoya. He said this. He said, both Ryan and Tank are at the top of the world when it comes to speed, power, and skill. This will come down to who wants it more. And it is for that reason that I strongly believe that Ryan will come out on top. What would you say to that, Leonard?
Oh, no. Ryan's getting knocked out. Ryan Garcia is getting knocked out. I like him. He's a nice young man. I'm very respectful. But Tank is on another level. And in boxing, it's levels. You know, Tank is a complete fighter. Yeah. There's very, very rarely that you see a complete fighter. Tank can do it all. He can box. He can bang. He's got a good chin. Yeah. You know, he's special. He's special.
Agree. Agree. And, just going off of that, we know all eyes are about to be set on Vegas. And of course, Vegas, the biggest venue that you could box in when you look at America. We have a question about what's the preparation time for a boxer with an upcoming match. So I guess when you first knew that this fight was going to happen, what was the preparation time like, Leonard, for you and the team?
Well, for Tank, he normally has 8 to 10 week camps. Yeah, 8 to 10 weeks camps. And that's standard for a top fighter, 8 to 10 weeks.
Okay. 8 to 10 weeks, right? And then, but really as a boxer, don't you pretty much almost have to always be ready, essentially, right? I mean, like, you can't let your body go, of course, because you just never know, right, when that call is going to come.
Yeah, but the difference is that when you're an elite fighter as opposed to a fighter that's just starting out, the guys who the younger fighters, they pretty much gotta stay ready to fight. But at this level, his fights are planned out. They have to be promoted, marketed, and so it's done over a period of time. So once he gets a date, then he kind of sets it from there. Like, okay, I got to get ready. And fighters in general, they pretty much kind of stay somewhat in shape per se.
Right.
But there's a difference between walking around shape and boxing shape.
Boxing shape, right.
Yeah, when a guy, he's getting ready and he's got to go in there and perform for 12 rounds. So it's a whole different level of preparation and training for that.
Right. It's completely, like you said, it's just different. But obviously, we know Tank puts in the work. That's why so many are excited to watch this fight. And just going back to the future of boxing as we look ahead, we have a question from Joseph Lee. With the use of supplements and other enhancement products, what are the challenges facing the sport of boxing which concern you most?
Well, the PEDs. I mean, there's no place for any of that stuff in sports as a whole. And I think that it's kind of rampant, believe it or not, in boxing. A lot of people are cheating. But one thing about us, we believe in the testing, and that is something that's essential. Any fighter that I'm dealing with, especially the elite guys, we're always going to implement, stringent drug testing, and once we know that this fight is about to happen, because again, oftentimes that people are doing something that they shouldn't be doing, trying to gain an advantage, and it's something we totally don't believe in.
Right. Just keeping it old school, right? Just letting the guys fight the way they're supposed to fight, not having any extra. But obviously, there's a no tolerance policy is what I'm hearing from you when it comes to that. And it's good to just hear the ethics and principles, that are still in boxing. Leonard, that's how I know you're from DC. That's how we are, folks. We're just good folks. We're just good people, when it comes to that. And as a female, I have to ask you, as we look at the future of women's boxing, Leonard, do you feel like it's going in the right direction?
Most definitely. A young lady that I'm very, very fond of. She's doing a phenomenal job. She's the face of women's boxing. Clarissa Shields. We have a very close relationship. We talk often. She calls up and asks for ideas and how would I handle this, and so I've been kind of like a mentor to her for a number of years. I'm very, very proud of what she's been able to do, win multiple titles in different weight classes, a 2-time Olympic gold medalist, and she's still doing her thing. And I'm so proud of what she's been able to do. But over the last couple years, women's boxing has really kind of elevated itself. And I'm really happy to see the direction that, the sport is going in as far as women, because again, the women, they train and work just as hard as the men do. They just haven't been able to get the necessary perks and things of that nature, because as a whole, it's still, women's boxing is still growing. It's still growing, and there's not a big base out there of fans at the moment, but they're consistently building towards that. And I'm very excited about the direction that the women are going in.
Right. You know, to talk about the direction of boxing as well, I have to ask you, when we see folks like, Jake Paul or others get into boxing, who maybe it wasn't there from the beginning. Leonard, what are your thoughts, on that, and influencers and kind of people with status, I guess you could say, right, kind of getting into the sport? Do you think it still keeps the respect of the sport, or do you think it makes it more of a mockery?
Well, like me personally, I don't have a problem with it because I know that there's only a certain level that those kind of people can go to.
Right.
He speaking of Jake Paul, he's done a phenomenal job again of marketing his brand himself, and he works very hard. I know one or two people in his camp. And actually, a good friend of mine is actually one of his trainers. He's a very hard worker. He's just at the kind of what we say the amateur level. He's just starting out. He's learning, trying to develop certain skill set, but again, I have no problems of anybody putting their mind to something and going out there and executing it. And he's had a lot of success. So again, people like him, they're not in my lane and in my way.
Right.
So I don't have any problems with any of that, and I don't think you can make a mockery out of the sport, only because it's like you can't go but so far. You can't go but so far because you have people who have been doing this ever since they were little kids. Like Floyd's been doing this ever since he was a little kid.
Right.
That's all he know. And so when you start something this late in life, and it's like boxing isn't something you can just pick up overnight.
Right.
So he's doing this at the level of where he should be, and the opponents that he's fighting. So it's good for him. I have no problems with what he's doing.
Yeah, no quabble. You mentioned Floyd, and I want to talk back to Floyd because you were able to make Floyd Mayweather, let's say, a crossover sensation, right? So you're able to play a big role in some of his career tactics. So Floyd had a good run. I mean, he was doing things like Dancing with the Stars, if folks remember, right?
Great you brought that up.
Yeah, in 2007. That's a great show. I love it. And that's a hard show. So give him props for that.
Oh my God, Kelsey.
Right?
When it just made me think when you said that, because I recall after he had beat Oscar De La Hoya, that was what we use, as I say, to be able to cross over into that mainstream world. Right. And that was always the goal, is to get him to that position, and he was going to take it from there. Right. And so once he did that, we attracted a lot of fans, and after the Oscar De La Hoya fight. But my goal was all along is that, okay, we're not just going to stop there. Right. So we make the fight. He's fighting Ricky Hatton in December of 2007. And so, and like I was saying, so Floyd's camps were like 6 to 8 weeks. Right. And so right when we were in camp, we started camp, obviously me having the business savvy, I'm just trying to find ways that I can continue to elevate him and continually cross him over to gain more fans, as he was becoming a pay-per-view attraction. Mm-hmm. And so when camp started, I told him, I said, I have this idea. I want you to be on this show. And he was like, what show? I said, it's a show, but you're gonna have to do it while you're training. And so he was like, okay. And so I remember the first day he went to training to learn how to dance. Karina Smirnoff. Yeah, that was her name. Yeah, she was like the best. Yeah. And so we're in this little studio, and Floyd, because again, it's a challenge because he's used to being kind of like outspoken and kind of controlling the environment, right? Per se. And right. She kind of is the same way. Yeah, and this is her world. Yeah, this is her world. So we go in there, and so she's telling him he's got to do this, and he's he's getting a little frustrated, and then she's kind of raising her voice and like, like, I need you to do this, and he's like, well, who do you think you're talking to? And so they get into it, and the very first day, he just leaves. He leaves, and so I had to kind of bring them back together. And he was upset with me. He was like, man, you got me doing this, da 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 da. And it's like, our training is more important than this right here. I said before, trust me,
Yeah.
I said, this right here, what we're doing, this is going to put you in a whole nother position where you're going to have a whole different fan base. And at that particular time, I was trying to get the middle-aged white women.
Right. Because that's who
You know,
watches
because
the show. Let's be honest, right? That's
yes,
the
yes.
main.
And at that time, it was 22 million viewers per week.
Right.
So I knew that. And I was like, our goal was to, again, I knew he would last for a while, but my goal was to get him in front of the media row, because we didn't have access to that, because with boxing being a niche sport, you know, and we talking about Access Hollywood and all of those entities that boxing has never even seen. So here it is, every Thursday, he had the opportunity to stand there in front of all these different media entities that we had never been exposed to, each and every week for like an hour. And then you see him, he's on this show and that show, and he actually wound up lasting like 8 weeks.
Right.
So,
which is good. That show is
which
hard.
is great. Which was great. So all that time, you know, the base, the middle-aged white women, they were getting a chance to get to know him week by week. And he's all of a sudden he become, a lot of them, their favorite dancer. And so this was the key. And then so it was 8 weeks, and then we probably had, it was a couple more weeks before we were his fight was, so we were able to promote the fight.
Right.
And so in turn, what happened is that when the fight came, there's a whole new base that he had, that were telling their husbands, honey, we got to order that pay-per-view because he's my favorite. And they had never watched boxing before. Right. And so I can kind of tell you this. So he was supposed to earn $15 million. Yeah, it was $15 million. And he wound up making like 35.
Wow. So more than double.
Yes. And so he came to me and he was like, I'm listening to everything you tell me.
Whatever you say, yes.
And then from there, I put him on WWE. And there we have the kids.
Right. The younger kids. Yep.
We have the younger kids. And I did that. And so, you know, it was like I always had a goal in mind to continue to find ways to cross him over, to gain more fans. And all while he's doing his job. He's training really hard, and nobody's going to beat him. Right. But we're doing this on a big platform. And then the key was to form our own company.
Right.
And then we cut the middleman out. Mm-hmm. And then so once we did that, it was like all the revenue was coming to Mayweather Promotions.
Right. Straight there.
Yeah. And so, and that's how, you know, in one night, you know, he's earning, you know, 9 figures, and I'm getting phone calls from top tier athletes from all other sports. How in the heck is he making that kind of money? And I got to do this for 6 or 7 years, you know, to get this big contract. And he's making this in one night. And I'm just like, you know, we figured it out. You know, we cut the middleman out, and we're our own bosses, and
which is
the sky's the limit. Yeah, there is no ceiling on what you can do. You know, so that's where Floyd changed the game. Right. Completely changed the game, boxing game forever. Yeah. You know, and fighters, you know, have looked up to him and been very thankful, because he's put them in a position to be able to make the kind of money that these fighters make today. Right.
And obviously boxing is a business, right? Sports are a business, but also this put Floyd and you in a position to be businessmen, which you have to be as well. Even being able to represent yourself is one of the best feelings, like especially when you get to cut out all those people, you know, who take a cut here and take a cut there. And like you said, then all the money comes to you. And I think that's the point that so many people want to get to. And I have to ask you, Floyd did Dancing with the Stars. Does he still utilize some of these dance moves he learned from Karina at all, Leonard, when you're around him, or was it just?
No. He's actually a good dancer, but that was, you know, we look back on that and it was like, oh my God, it was like, it was hilarious, but it was a lot of fun, and it was definitely the best move we've ever made by far. Those are some of the proud moments that, you know, I will always look back on and just say, we did that.
Yeah, that was us. That was all.
Yeah, we did that.
And talking about what else was all you were also instrumental in Mayweather's 3 biggest financial successes, folks. When we talk about his boxing career, as you were the lead negotiator in fights with Oscar De La Hoya, you guys remember this, Canelo Alvarez, and of course, Manny Pacquiao, probably the most memorable fight, I'd say, probably of those. All 3 fights, you talked about pay-per-view earlier, but those broke pay-per-view records. And then, of course, the Pacquiao fight, I can't believe it was back in 2015. Doesn't seem like it was that long ago.
I know.
Remember it, generated $600 million, more than the Super Bowl.
Super Bowl, right?
The Super Bowl. I mean, that's huge. We're talking about boxing. That's huge. I mean, you got to give yourself a pat on the back for that one.
Yeah, I it's truly blessed, truly blessed. I had a great team also too, you know, and that was critical. I didn't do this by myself, you know, working alongside my partner, Al Heyman. And again, it was like we did that. We actually did that. And then you fast forward, then we had the Conor McGregor fight in 2017.
Yeah.
You know, and and broke records again.
Yeah. I mean, and this is what Floyd attracts. I mean, he's one of those people now, like you put him anywhere and I feel like he's like a magnet, right? Like people like want to watch, they want to be there. I don't know. I'm not putting it out there in the universe. I feel like if you put him back in the ring again, Leonard.
No. He's too old. He's too old. He's having fun just doing exhibitions, you know, entertaining fans around the world. Yeah. He's been doing a lot of international stuff with the exhibitions, just having fun, staying in shape. But as far as from competitive boxing, I wouldn't allow him to do that. Me personally, as somebody who he's my family, so I would never want to see him get hurt. Yeah. You know, in a situation. And as you get older, you know, that's just part of life and what happens. Your reflexes aren't the same, and especially, you know, we talk about getting there with a young fighter, you know, but he's not even thinking about nothing like that. You know, he's you know, set for generations, and again, he's just having fun, living his life.
Yeah, well, as he should. Like he's earned it. He's earned that right to just live his best life. And Leonard, as we look ahead to the future, what's the future look like for Mayweather Promotions? What's the high outlook for you all?
Continue to develop this young talent, and hopefully, you know, one day that we might have another Gervonta Davis, you know, or another Floyd Mayweather. Who knows? Again, you know, I've just been blessed to be able to work with, you know, the 2 most successful like fighters of the last 20, 30 years.
Yeah.
Yeah. You know, well, obviously with Floyd being the most successful fighter ever. And then Tank with this new generation, he's really doing his thing. And again, I'm so proud of the young man.
It's huge. It's huge. And before I let you go, Leonard, you know, I recently had a conversation with the parent of a young boxer also from the area. You know, something he brought up, he loves seeing these guys from the area make it. Honestly, everybody make it, not just from the area, but a lot of these guys, their background stories. I mean, he came through, really, you could say trial and tribulation, but he talked about the pay-per-view aspect. And obviously, we all love pay-per-view. We all love watching boxing. But when you think about the accessibility factor of it, just curious if you had any thoughts on that, you know, for kids, you know, who might not have that access, obviously, to watch such a big fight on pay-per-view. And as you think about, you know, the community and giving back, just any thoughts on making it, you know, accessible kind of for all, especially these young kids that look up to these guys that, you know, might not be able to obviously quickly pull it up on pay-per-view, you know, at their house or in the immediate area.
Yeah, well, what's happened is that we you know, obviously Showtime is still existing. You know, there's a fee, obviously, you know, when you have cable, you know, to have Showtime. But the free TV, it's kind of hard to do that, only because you have to find ways to generate revenue to pay the fighters. Right. You know, and that's kind of, you know, when people like they continue to elevate themselves, meaning, you know, as a fighter, there's very few pay-per-view fighters out there in the world. Right. You know, and obviously Tank's one of them. And that's how they generate revenue, you know, for their hard work that they put in. And, you know, yeah, that's kind of how that goes.
No, look, you said it. I put the question out there. I told him I'd make sure I asked, you know, and like you said, but these fighters, they fight for that, right? They work for that. And obviously you have to get to that level, as you said, to even be able to earn that right for folks to want to watch you on that. Leonard, it's been such a blast having you. When do you leave the city? When are you headed out to Vegas?
I'm headed back to Vegas tomorrow. I have to go. My daughter has a basketball tournament.
Nice.
Yeah, so she's a AAU player.
Love
She
it.
plays EYBL. She's 14 years old, and next year she's going to Sierra Canyon High School.
Oh, that's excited. We know Sierra Canyon. She's playing some good basketball then.
Yeah. She's. I'm very proud of her. She's doing her thing.
And I'm putting in an atmosphere, a future Terp, hopefully Brenda Freeze can draw her up, Leonard, in the future.
Yeah.
Have to continue the Maryland legacy. Well, best wishes to her. Safe travels to Vegas. Leonard, thank you so much for your time. Truly enjoyed having you on the show. And we're all looking forward to April 22nd and that great fight that's coming up.
Thank you very much. I appreciate it.
All right. Thanks so much. You guys just heard from the CEO of Mayweather Promotions, Leonard Ellerbe. Be sure to check out the fight. We have Davis, Garcia. The hashtag's already up and trending. Check out all the things leading into the fight. And as always, make sure you all get it on pay-per-view. We'll have lots more to discuss. Leonard, thanks so much. Have a great one.
Thank you.
All right, everyone. Thank you so much for tuning into this live edition of Listening with KNN. Always a blast. Thank you for your thoughts and comments. Sorry, I couldn't get to everything. I couldn't hog Leonard the whole time, folks. You know, he has a big fight to get ready for and to promote. But as always, we'll make sure that we try to get to most of your questions each and every show. A special thanks to my team, as always, for helping me get ready and prepared for this. And a special thanks to you all for listening in. We have a double header today. Later, I'll be joined by former NFL defensive lineman Chris Baker. So we're going to switch to the football world. We got the draft coming up. We got to talk about the Washington Commanders. So much happening around this team. So I promise you all, you are not going to want to miss it. So we'll be back here 6 p.m. Eastern time sharp. Again, 6 p.m. Eastern time sharp. Also, we'll have brand new audio editions of Listening with KNN coming out next week. So make sure you subscribe to the podcast anywhere you listen to your favorite podcast. As always, thank you all so much and can't wait to see you guys later this evening. Bye, guys. Have a great one.
Follow Kelsey on social media at The Real K Nelson. Catch episodes of Listen In with KNN on YouTube, on air at AM 1340 and 96.9 FM, Fox Sports Radio, on Facebook and Twitter, and online at KelseyNicoleNelson.com. Thank you for watching this live stream broadcast of Listen In with KNN.
Listen In with KNN on Fox Sports Radio now offers official Kelsey Nicole Nelson apparel in a variety of styles for men and women. Fashionable shirts, leggings, hats, jackets, and more. Order now and get 15% off and free shipping. Just enter promo code KNN. Get your Listen In with KNN wearables today. And check out Listen In with KNN on Fox Sports Radio with Kelsey Nicole Nelson.